For this lab activity, we will be learning about the 4 different positioning schemes. Now, you've already seen normal flow, even though we didn't talk about it. But now I want to talk to you about relative positioning, absolute positioning, and fixed positioning as other possibilities that you can use when laying out your pages. Looking at what we did in a previous lab, we didn't have to use any of those positioning schemes except for normal flow. We were able to put in elements or place elements where they needed to go just by using a float property, width property with percentages, and then margins and padding. However, this will add a little something to your pages just in case you want to position things just where you want them to be. So as we go through each of these positioning schemes, just kind of think about how maybe you could incorporate that into your page if you want to. But again, it's not necessary, right? But it's good to know all the tools available for you in CSS. To get started with this lab, go ahead and create a lab for a folder. And inside that folder, create a CSS folder and save a style.css file into it. This style.css file should not have anything in it just yet. We'll start adding in a few minutes, in a couple minutes. And then for your HTML, it has the minimum code in there, along with some extras that you've seen at this point. For the title in the head section, go ahead and make it your last name, and then lab4a, so I could tell your files apart from each other. And then we will link this HTML file with an external style.css file using this link element with these values or attributes inside it. And then in the body section, I went ahead and set up for a header section, the main section, and then the footer section. This HTML file, save it as your last name dash lab dash 4a.html. Again, this is how your page should be set up. You should have your HTML file in the same level as your CSS folder, and then inside that CSS folder should be that style sheet. Once you're ready, you can go ahead and get started with me here in the HTML section. We will start with an H1 element in the main section, the main idea for this page. And this page is all about positioning elements. I'll create my opening H1, and I will go ahead and create my closing H1 tag so I don't forget. I'll call this one positioning schemes, since there's more than one. And after that, we'll create our first section, which will be all about normal flow or static positioning. Inside this section, we'll just create an article. Then inside this article will be the H2, a subheading to H1. Opening and closing H2 tags. We'll say static positioning, normal flow. Now, static positioning is all that we have in this example that we created. We don't even have to specify it because it's the default way of positioning things. However, if you really wanted to specify it in your CSS, this is what you would use. You would use the position property and then put in a value of static. We'll add 3 paragraphs here. In the first paragraph, we'll say, just to talk more about static positioning normal flow, we'll say that HTML elements are positioned static by default. So we don't even have to do anything about it. That's just how things will be positioned, even if we don't specify static positioning. Static positioned elements are not affected by the top, bottom, left, and right properties. And since these properties don't work with elements with static positioning, we're not even going to get to that yet, or we're not even going to get into that with static positioned elements. Second paragraph. There is no need to declare it. But an element with, this would be double quotes, so I will use a character entity for a double quote, and I will use a named entity, so that's ensign, QUOT, semicolon. Okay, so an element with position static, quote again, is not positioned in any special way. It is always positioned according to the normal flow of the page. Now, what do I mean by normal flow? Well, it means that, and that's what the third paragraph is about. Let's see. It means that these elements will stack on top of each other. That's the normal flow. And you will see them displayed in your web browser in the order that you added it in your HTML file. So we'll just say these first three paragraphs have static positioning. They stack one on top of each other and appear in the order they are added in the HTML file. Let's save that and check out a preview of our HTML file. I will open this HTML file with my Google Chrome, and this is what we have right here. Just different elements that have static positioning or normal flow. They stack on top of each other. Here's my H1 stacked on top of my H2, stacked on top of this first paragraph, which is stacked on top of the second paragraph, which is stacked on top of the third paragraph. And then the order that I have them in my HTML correspond with what you see here. That's static positioning. Now in the next video, we will get started with relative positioning. Now before I do that though, before I stop this video, let's go ahead and add a little bit of style to this page. We'll constrain the width and center it. We'll add a background color to the body and a background color to the header and footer sections, and we'll add some padding so that text will not be so close to the edge of their containers. Go to your CSS and we'll start with the body. We'll constrain this so that it's only 1000 pixels wide instead of being the entire width of my browser window. We'll say width 1000 px. We will center this by putting in a margin of 0 auto. Now, when your margin property has two values, the first value is for the top and bottom margins. So we're setting the top and bottom margins to 0. And then for auto, that's for the left and right margins. And when you set the left and right margins to auto, that means that you're making them equal no matter how big or small your browser window is. And when you have equal margins on the left and right, that has the effect of centering your content. And for the background color, I will choose my background color, but you can go ahead and choose yours. This is your time to just kind of pick out your own favorite color, because maybe the colors I choose would not be your kind of thing. So for me, I'm craving some Kit Kats, so I'm thinking we'll make this a background color of chocolate. Sounds good, right? Okay, for the header and footer, you'll notice that I'm creating a selector that will target more than one HTML element. In this case, I'm targeting header and footer. And we know this because I put a comma in between the two. That's how you can tell. There's a difference between header footer like that with no comma, and then header, comma, footer. In this example here, we're targeting the header and the footer so that it will take on the declarations within this particular CSS rule. I want to add a background color. Let's see, what goes with chocolate? We'll say pink. And we will add a padding of 30 pixels. And when I make it to where it's just padding, then the browser will automatically add a padding of 30 pixels at the top, bottom, left and right sides of the header and footer containers. For the main section, we'll also add a different background color for that. We'll just make it white so that I can see that, the black text and all that. And I will also add a padding of 30px. Save that. And if you linked your HTML file to your CSS file correctly, you should have it to where when you refresh, it will have all these different CSS styling that we just added here. You should have a background color to your body, which that does not look chocolatey, does it? But whatever. This is the header section. It's pink and it has a padding of 30 pixels on the top, bottom, left and right, sides. There's no content in there, so all you're seeing is the padding. For the footer, same thing, no content except for the padding all around. And for the main section, which has this H1, and then this section with all these different elements, we gave it a white background and it has a 30 pixel padding all around. Now this top portion here, you might say, well, that doesn't quite look 30 pixels. Well, you would be right. If we inspect this, I'm right clicking and clicking on inspect. When I hover over main, you can see in the green area, shaded area, that's the padding of 30 pixels. But then when I hover over the H1, you'll see that shaded area above and below. That would be the default margin that browsers add to block elements such as H1. And you will also notice that for paragraphs, they also have a space before and after. All right, so that's it for this video. In the next video, we will get started with relative positioning.